you'll literally have hundreds of YouTube videos talking about this person fell off and that person fell off. And these are the people that's actually moving shit. You know how many videos I've seen about Joe Rogan falling off?
Bro.
Meanwhile, he's the #1 podcast in the world.
Yeah.
What do we do?
They're all such hacks, dude. It's just like, and they all copy each other. They just find something that works within the title, and then the other ones see that worked for them, so then they do the exact same title.
But what are they basing this off? Their feelings?
No, it's just views. It's like once somebody's very popular, especially like in the YouTube space, you just get a lot of clicks off their name, and then saying something horrible about them is going to induce clicks in the name. And they are powerful, though. They can like set narratives that aren't true. They like make them up out of thin air, and they just push them out there, and people will click on them, and they'll get views. And the more views, the more people make those types of videos. I had somebody make like my career was over while I was literally at the peak of my career.
Bro.
Like I was doing arenas.
I be wondering, I be trying to make burnout accounts. I mean, straight up.
I'm doing arenas in Australia. I'm dreaming to fall off if this is falling off.
Fuck the burnout accounts. I be about to get under there as radio face. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that's the shit that doesn't make any sense to me. But then I realized something, right? And I realized it when I see people talking about the podcasters that have done these big deals recently.
Oh, yeah.
You know the list I'm talking about. Who's the list? I just had the list. Who's the list up?
Alex Cooper.
Yeah. Who is it?
Kelsey.
Dax, Kelsey.
Yes, it's a top. Okay, here, yeah, it's a top 5 recent major podcast deals. Boardroom put this out. Joe Rogan, Spotify, $250 million. Alex Cooper, Sirius XM, $125 million. Smartless, $100 million. Kelsey Brothers, Amazon, $100 million. Dax Shepard, $80 million. And what happens is these will get posted, and then literally you'll see like black Twitter, black social media go crazy. And they're like, who the fuck are these people? And we don't know any of these individuals. And how the fuck they got this money over this person and that person? And I'm like, this isn't a race thing.
Yeah.
It's a metrics thing.
Yeah.
If I simply showed you the numbers, if I simply showed you how much your favorite podcast that you see probably go viral all of the time, and your algorithm is always filled with their shit. If I showed you their numbers compared to Joe Rogan or Alex Cooper or Dax Shepard, you'd be like, oh shit.
Man, what am I talking about?
I didn't know the disparity was this fucking great. And I'm talking about like, bro, I'm not even talking about like a couple million. I'm talking about tens of millions difference in what goes viral all the time and what we see on these blogs all the time, as opposed to what's really moving out here.
Yeah.
So my point with all of that is, where do you get this shit from? Like, do we actually look at real analytics, or do we just go off vibes?
We should go off of vibes, emotion, what we feel. How can I satisfy how I feel? I'm not getting that deal, so fuck it. It's racism.
Fuck you. Yeah, it's racism.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and it's not just them. It's just, that's just how the game works.
Listen, here's the thing, man. This is my mindset. I've always been like this. If there's something that I can actually go look up to show me that it's something other than an ism, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go look it up.
Yeah.
Being that I'm a podcast executive, I see a lot of these numbers.
Yeah.
I'm just simply saying I know it's not close. And that's why you can't even call it racism, because there's not even a black or brown equivalent to the Joe Rogans, to Alex Coopers.
But
like, it's not even,
those purchases are going to come for everybody, because I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before, but like, I think what's happening in podcasting right now is what happened to magazines, where magazines started out pretty broad and then they got hyper specific. Christian Bass Fisherman magazine, gay climbing magazine, whatever. They got.
What are you climbing?
You know exactly. Exactly. Not.
Come on now. You got it. It's good. It's not offensive if it's funny. Those are the rules.
If it's a joke, we have to leave it in. So, and I think that's what's happened with podcasting, is that like the podcast, I think, overall numbers will continue to grow. It'll just be like the thing that people consume. It's just part of everybody's life. But the podcast numbers for shows probably will shrink because there's so many hyper specific things you can listen to. This is my basketball, like nuanced basketball science podcast that I listen with JJ and LeBron. Here's my funny basketball pod I listen from Barstool.
And both of them might be getting 1 million listens an episode.
Or they're getting 250,000 each.
Great.
But which is awesome. Now here's the thing. What I think the reason why there's all these purchases for podcasts right now is because I think the podcast production companies or the iHeartMedias have realized the numbers are going to shrink overall. So we need more podcasts total to generate the revenue that we want to make. And the cost for our advertising units, because these places are really advertising agencies, right? Like the Wonderies, the SiriusXMs, the iHeartMedias, what they are is an advertising arm that is going to service the podcast. They go, hey, here's your $20 million, and then we're going to advertise against that and try to beat that $20 million we're paying you. That's the idea. Now, the cost to find advertisers for 2 podcasts to 3 is nominal.
Nah, you gotta have that number. You gotta have that network.
What I'm saying is the difference for finding advertisers for 2 podcasts to 3 or 2 to 10 is very different.
Unless you're Rogan. No, Alex Cooper.
Rogan's are anomalies.
Those anomalies are different.
But even then, I would say it's even easier to find them advertisers because they're in such
so
demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so they're looking at the model. They're going, hold on. If I have my advertising team that's already built in place, if I have 50 podcasts or 100, and I don't need to hire any more advertisers, I might as well have 100. And then each of them is making 100,000 views or 200,000 views. That's actually better than just having 3. And I think that's why you're seeing this buying spree happen again.
And by the way, they're buying companies. That's the other thing people don't realize.
Yeah.
Alex Cooper did not just sell as Caller Daddy.
She sold her
network. Has a network.
Yeah.
You know, Dax Shepard is developing a network with Wondery. Smartless is a network.
And that just goes back to what we're saying.
Rogan is just the anomaly.
He's the anomaly.
Stop comparing yourself to Joe Rogan, please.
Everybody, it's a difference. You
black,
can't,
white,
stop.
Asian,
stop.
Extraterrestrials. Everybody stop comparing yourself to Rogan.
It's just a generational thing that happened.
It's never going to, we're never going to see it again in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. Biggest podcast by far. And I'm going to tell y'all something else that y'all may not know. The podcast audience, and Chris, you know this, is very white. 60% of the podcast audience are white people.
Yeah.
It's
14% are black people.
It's the makeup of America.
Everybody else is others.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a fact. So if you have a podcast audience that's very white, who do you think they're going to be listening to?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to listen to things they can relate to. That's why Alex Cooper kills.
Yeah, poke hole in this, but it feels just like what happened with TV. So TV individual networks were having tough times doing ad sales. And then the streaming era came where, hey, if we group up a couple of networks, I can throw these all on Hulu and we could start making more money because we package it all as a deal.
Go back before that. You don't even have to look at it like that. You could look at it like like MTV was owned by Viacom. Viacom had Comedy Central,
Country Music Television, BET, VH1, all of that shit.
So I don't know if there was one advertising unit for Viacom. I imagine MTV had its own and they had their own, but they all come back to this mother that is Viacom. So hypothetically, you could advertise across Viacom if you wanted and leverage those relationships across the entirety of it.
Which people do.
Which I imagine also iHeart does, even with radio. It's like, okay, I want to advertise on the Breakfast Club. Then iHeart goes, okay, we'll give you the Breakfast Club, but you also got to take this midnight slot as well if you want the primetime slot. I imagine this is how it works, right? To a certain extent?
I don't know if I want to tell how the fucking sausage is.
I think that's how it just, all right, let's not use you. But in TV, it goes, we're going to give you the number one show, but I'm also going to need you to take some of these shows.
It depends, right? Because like in day parts, certain shows just command more. So it's like, you know, like those big Fortune 500 companies, like, no, we're spending this amount on Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
This is what we want. This is the talent we want doing it. You know, it's a little different, just a little bit.
Sure.
I feel like with TV, so the numbers hasn't gone up in TV. Like I feel the people who watch TV,
That happened
that's
though.
Just,
That happened. I saw that happen at Viacom.
What I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's happening now with podcasts. Like I think we've reached the zenith in terms of the amount of people who are into podcasts, are going to watch podcasts.
We don't
and
know.
No.
The fact is we don't know.
I'll be honest with you.
No, the audience is growing.
I don't even think it's close. I think we will double.
really,
Yeah, but what will happen
It's
is
dispersed.
it will just be dispersed. So the illusion will be, oh, it's not as many people watching anymore. But the reality will be they are watching so many different things that now it's becoming hyper. Whereas TV, viewing hours on streaming have gone way up. Way up. Like everybody's just streaming.
I was talking about just like regular cable television.
Oh, well, that's a different anomaly because people are not watching cable anymore.
Yeah, and so now we're seeing people go from cable to the streamers. So
Yes.
that's why those numbers are going up.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in podcasting. I think there are certain people that just like to listen, and we've exhausted that amount of people. Maybe it might go up in terms of people going from radio to podcasts, but like I have a group of friends that they just don't watch podcasts. They will never watch podcasts. It's just not their thing. And I think it's just the same thing like TV. There's
What
some
do you think
TV
the podcast
people.
audience is worldwide?
Oh, I have no idea.
464 million podcast listeners, projected to reach over 500 million this year.
Yeah, I think we're at 1 billion in like 5 years. Maybe less. Like, I just think podcasting becomes so ubiquitous that it is just like, for example, if you want to learn about microprocessing chips, there's just a podcast about it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like it will just
That's right. It's
just niche.
It's niche.
Yeah.
It's niche.
But that's the beauty of it.
That's
By the way,
awesome.
that's what TV was.
Yeah.
I can go to Discovery Channel. I can go watch National Geographic. I can go watch CNN. I can go watch ESPN.
Build a house channel.
That's
There's
right.
a food channel. Like
absolutely.
And those channels weren't doing crazy views, but what they did is they found a way to maximize that ad rev across all the views. So what what MTV did that was really smart is instead of having a celebrity or whatever, or like a famous actor for one show, they had I hate the term celebrity. They had talent
Yeah.
for the network. So Charlamagne and I were network talent, meaning they put us across all the shows.
Yep.
So now you have 4 different shows that Charlamagne and I are both on, and the same audience is watching all these different shows, but you only got to pay us once,
Oh wow.
right? So,
Until you get too big.
and then you get too big, and then it's a different
and then
thing.
when the contract is up and you renegotiate.
Yes. But the idea of that, I think, is quite interesting, where you're essentially going, okay, we can't afford to have a different superstar on every single show we have. We just don't have that money. But what we can do is find some talent that can go on 4 or 5 different shows and then monetize that way.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to talk more about my business.
That's great for podcasts. It's great for podcasts.
But I think the main point being is podcasting is growing.
Podcasting is growing.
You might see this illusion of numbers going down, but the total numbers are going up, and people just have to find different ways to monetize their viewership.
That's right.
But podcasting as a whole is just here to stay, and it is.
And there's no black podcasts that are doing the numbers as the Joe Rogans and the Alex Coopers. Not yet, anyway. I'm not saying that they won't be eventually, but right now, it's just simply not.
Yeah.
It's just a numbers game. So when you look at these numbers and y'all see these tens of millions of dollars getting thrown around, trust and believe. And don't get me wrong, these numbers are inflated a little bit too.
Yeah, it's not real.
On Spotify.
I don't know how Trevor does, but I mean, I don't know how Trevor does. But I mean, even when you look at the top 10 most listened to podcasts, there's nobody black. Breakfast Club does 15 to 20 million downloads a month as a podcast.
Well, that's the biggest black podcast.
But we're still not in the top 10 with the Jay Shettys and everybody. So my point is, like, just imagine the numbers that those people are doing. By the way, I know some of these numbers. I can tell you what the Kelsey brothers do every month, right? And it's a lot. You know what I mean?
No, their numbers aren't that crazy.
Oh, what?
Kelsey Brothers.
Audio?
I guess I'm thinking video.
See, somebody sent me that. Whenever somebody sends me that tens of millions of dollars these people are making, somebody literally did this to me this week. They sent me
Interesting.
Club Shay Shay videos and Travis Kelce videos on YouTube, Travis and Jason. And they was like, he's getting millions of views and they're only getting tens of thousands. Like, I'm like, it's the audio.
Interesting.
audio, they're doing like 10 to 12 million a month.
Wow.
So how many episodes do they do a week?
I don't know, It's a good question. Is it one? I don't know. Do you know at one time, and Joe Rogan can say, I remember at one point, Joe Rogan literally had 100 million listens in a month.
Yeah.
Like 100 million downloads in a month. This is before the Spotify deal. So when you see the Brinks truck get backed up.
Doesn't he do that regularly? Like, I'm so...
I don't know about now, but I'm talking about when he first got the Spotify deal, it was 100 million
Insane.
downloads. I'm just talking about audio. I ain't even talking about the video portion.
Wow.
I'm just talking about audio.
Wow. Yeah, it's not even a conversation. Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. There's no way that you would know that because that number's not visible anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's just no way that people would put it together. You are on the back end of things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I am.